And that is why I say that porn will ruin your life, ruin your relationships with women. Welcome in to The Way, Spiritual Dojo. This is the path of unconditional love. Men, today we are going to talk about porn addiction. But why did the addiction start in the first place? Where does that come from? Addictions are created from something. It just doesn't happen. Addiction can come from trauma. Addiction can be created through a deep shame that has been pressed down, that has deeply been pressed down. It starts with that depression where you don't want to feel what needs to be felt. What needs to be felt inside. Because when you don't feel what needs to be felt, depression begins. All those emotions, all the things that need to be felt that keep getting pushed down, pushed down, pushed down, pushed down. You think of the word depression, deep press, deeply pressing the emotions down into your system. And it's like you're kinking a hose. Your system is like a channel, letting the river throw right through it. But the river cannot flow when it has a kink in its channel, a kink in its hose. That is when addiction can then take place. Because with one that does not want to feel the feelings that need to be felt, loved, released, addiction is born. And with addiction, there is always going to be some deep underlying shame that has been created. A deep underlying shame of some specific moment in time, that when this moment in time happened, whether it be a relationship that broke apart and your whole world got flipped upside down, or maybe it was a trauma, that gets pressed down, and that's when addictions are born, when they are not looked at. So porn. I can speak from my own experience of deep sexual shame. Being raised in a childhood where I was raised in a religious upbringing, conservative Christian upbringing, where to show your sexuality, to be curious in your sex, to be able to express yourself sexually was frowned upon. For me, it was not able to be expressed in a way that was nurturing and authentic. And with that, sexual repression caused me to seek behavior where it was a lot of hiding. When I first masturbated, I felt so much shame around it because it was as if God was watching me and was shaming me for what I had done. Finding porn at a young age, I remember I was looking online and it was some website, and from that website I saw these women completely unclothed, and this feeling that coursed through my body, it was this very good feeling but bad feeling where nobody can know that I'm doing this. And from that taboo feeling, it only grew more intense and more intense and more intense, and doing things to hide the feeling, hide the thing, hide from being seen, hide from being witnessed by somebody else because I feel like I would get shamed by my mother. And so from that point, it just kept growing and growing and festering and festering. And that is why I say that porn will ruin your life, ruin your relationships, ruin your relationships with women. To connect deeply with a woman's heart is not possible if you are addicted to porn, in my experience. You cannot fully feel another person when you're not fully feeling your feelings. And so as I grew up and I started to heal and I started to look at my wounds and look at my baggage and look at the things of my childhood, all the pieces that I got to look at with a lens, it was when I realized that porn had become a vice, an addiction, where I couldn't go without it for a day. There would be days where I would be masturbating and looking at porn 8 or 10 times a day. But that was around the time where I really pressed all my feelings down, pressed it all down underneath. Once I began to look what was underneath the addiction, once I realized it was deep sexual shame that I had harbored my whole life since I was a kid, there was release. There was crying, there was sobbing, there was so much shame that was coming out of me that had been stuck in my system, that was like tar, that had just kept me compressed into this small little boy. But as I started to bring it to the light, and as I started to share it with others, because once you share the feeling of that shame with others, it then gets a flashlight, a light shined on it. And in a safe environment where people are there without judgment to hold you and to let you express this part of you, that is when the deep healing happens. And when I kept bringing it up and kept bringing it up and bringing it to the surface, and it was allowed that love to heal, and I started to focus on getting rid of porn and completely not watching it entirely, it fell away easy. It was because of all the deep work I did underneath. And when that released me, that's when I started to harness my sexual power and using it for good, for using it to actually harness my power. And I was not masturbating as much. I became very conscious of how I spent my time with my sacred sexuality, my self-love practice, how I masturbated. I stopped thinking about women in my mind and started just getting off on my energy and feeling into my body. And when I could really dive deep into that world, it just became that much sweeter. And when I kept doing that, that's when I started to focus on calling in a partner. Because for me, truly, I do take parts of the Bible that I agree that sex is sacred and relationship is sacred, and to constantly having sex with everyone without consideration of your heart and how you connect with this person and how intimate these connections are, how can you, I mean, in my experience, I don't feel alive. My heart doesn't feel alive when I'm not truly connected to a divine union, a divine connection, a divine intimacy with another human being. As I started to do semen retention, no longer masturbating, it became a lot easier without porn. I started to be able to hold back my semen, and then it would be 1 month, 2 months, 3 months with no masturbation, and a newfound energy was coursing through me. A newfound energy that was truly something I'd never experienced. All of you men, it's less about like, oh, how do I get rid of this addiction? It's not about that. It's about, what am I not looking at? What shame have I not brought to the surface? What guilt? What deep wounds have I not looked at and ignored? When did the porn addiction begin? Breathe that in. And out. Take a deep breath in. And breathe out. These words may trigger you. These words may hit you deep down in your belly, deep down in your system to where it hurts. Maybe you want to stop this video as you are watching it. And I say, breathe. Breathe. Breathe, brother. Breathe. Speaking directly to the men that have this addiction and they feel like they can't quit. Don't try and get rid of the addiction, but get underneath. Get underneath the deeper parts of you. And with that being said, I will end this on a prayer. God, thank you so much for this video, this session, this way of speaking life into many other men so that they can see and be reminded of their power, reclaiming their power, releasing their shame. And I pray that all men are able to release the deep-seated shame that's caused the addiction in the first place. In your name I pray, amen. This is the way. Peace be with you.